The Second Continental Congress convened on May 10, 1775 AD, the same day as the storming of Fort Ticonderoga. They would become the government of the colonies. The First Continental Congress was formed on September 5, 1774 AD in response to the British government's passing of the Intolerable Act and blockading Boston Harbor. This was the Crown's response to the colonist Boston Tea Party, which took place on December 16, 1773, in an act of rebellion against the British government's tax on tea. The colonists felt that this was a taxation without representation. Delegates from the 13 colonies met at the Pennsylvania State House, which would later be known as Independence Hall, in the city of Philadelphia. The president of the Second Continental Congress was Peyton Randolph, a politician who was a member of the powerful Randolph family. Randolph was also elected as president of the First Continental Congress, but he suffered from a chronic illness that plagued his first and second terms. During his first term as president of the First Continental Congress, he was replaced by a wealthy slave owner named Henry Middleton, a delegate from South Carolina. Unlike most of the other delegates, Middleton was against the colonies declaring themselves independent from Great Britain and tried his best to mend fences with the Crown despite opposition from most of the delegates. After a couple of weeks, Peyton Randolph was replaced as president of the Congress due to his chronic illness. John Hancock was voted to take his place after Henry Middleton declined to replace Randolph a second time. Hancock was a merchant and politician who was born into a wealthy New England family. His wealth and connections helped lay the groundwork for the revolt of the 13 colonies. On June 14, 1775, Congress voted to create an army by organizing all of the militia units that were taking part in the siege of Boston to be incorporated as the Continental Army, and they were designated to protect the 13 colonies. On June 15th, the Congress voted to name George Washington, a wealthy planter from Virginia and former British Army officer, to lead the newly created Continental Army. 2 days later, the Battle of Bunker Hill occurred. Even though it was a technical victory for the British, the Redcoats suffered a large amount of casualties and lost 19 officers in the battle. The loss, however, motivated the colonists. On June 19, 1775, Congress began to refer the 13 colonies as the United Colonies. This term was used a few months earlier by John Adams in a letter to the Boston Gazette. On June 27th, Congress authorized General Philip Schuyler to research the possibility of an invasion of Canada. In a last attempt to try and prevent a full-scale war between the colonies and Great Britain, Congress adopted the Olive Branch Petition on July 5, 1775. This was followed up by a declaration of the causes and necessity of taking up arms. This outlined why the colonies were revolting against the Crown with military force. None of this mattered to King George III. The final straw for the Crown was the Battle of Bunker Hill. After hearing about the disastrous victory, the king refused to read either petition. He issued his own proclamation on August 23, 1775, the Proclamation for Suppressing Rebellion and Sedition. He ordered his military to use their utmost endeavors to withstand and suppress such rebellion. Congress was also trying to woo support from Britain's biggest rival, France. They appointed the Committee of Secret Correspondence, which was headed by Benjamin Franklin, a diplomat who had strong ties to both France and Great Britain. His trips to France and his gift of gab would later pay off in the years to come. The Continental Congress approved of the invasion of Canada, and it was going to begin in August. They sent delegates to the area to get the Six Nation tribes to agree and stay out of the fight. Samuel Kirkland, a Presbyterian missionary who worked with the natives, was sent to the Six Nations with a message from Congress saying, "We desire you to remain at home and not join either side, but to keep the hatchet buried deep." General Schuyler had his own meeting with the Six Nations tribes. The chiefs agreed to remain neutral, but one told him it is a family affair and they would sit still and see you fight out. But they wanted guarantees from the government that they would stop entering native lands. Unfortunately, General Schuyler would be unable to participate in the invasion of Canada, so he appointed General Richard Montgomery to take his spot. Colonel Benedict Arnold would also take part in the invasion as well, only after making his case to General George Washington. By the end of 1775, the Continental Congress had a lot on their plate. They were moving towards independence from Great Britain, and the invasion of Canada was underway. The Army had the city of Boston under siege and raids on the port of Nova Scotia. The upcoming year would also begin the birth of a nation.